much for being here. I am beyond delighted and so grateful for all of you for being here and for your support of me and this book. And happy 12th birthday to Roving Pack, which is kind of surreal and bizarre. I'm going to talk for a tiny short period of time, and then we're going to get on to the wonderful, wonderful readers, which is what I know we are all here for. It is very much what I am here for. And I don't love to hear myself talk, so I am not going to talk forever, but I am going to talk for a tiny period of time because I want to talk a little bit about why we're here, why we are in the interwebs doing a little event for Zoom, and what Roving Pack meant to me and what it meant, I think, to community a little bit. So for those of you who maybe don't know, I wrote Roving Pack when I was on tour. It's my first novel, my second book. I wrote it when I was on tour with my first anthology, Kicked Out, which was a collection of stories from current and former homeless LGBTQ youth. And as part of that tour, I was teaching writing workshops at homeless shelters and drop-in centers across the US. And I really started to think a lot about, while I was hearing all of these stories that folks were writing, is that I was thinking a lot about my own experience of being a runaway, throwaway kid in the early 2000s and building family and community with other queer kids in punk houses across Portland, Oregon. And, I think something that I've thought a lot about then and since is the way in which so many of us didn't plan to survive. We didn't plan to make it. That wasn't really kind of the trajectory that we thought we were on, and many people didn't. And those of us who did, like the preservation of these stories and these worlds started to feel really important to me. And so in the new issue, or the new edition of Roving Pack, there's a new introduction. And in that introduction, I talk about that writing Roving Pack felt a lot like dumpster diving through memory and trauma and community to create this fictional world. It is a novel, it is fiction. And this fictional cast of characters and the world that they live in and inhabit was very much inspired by my own experience. And what felt really important about that was so much of the community involvement in writing it. I had people that I was barely still in touch with mail me like 9-pound boxes of ephemera, like everything they had left from their punk house that they had lived in, people that sent me all the photos they had, and all of that ephemera really contributed to the feeling that I was able to dive into as I was writing this book. So Roving Pack released in 2012. It was an American Library Association Rainbow List book, and it won second place in the Rainbow Book Awards for trans fiction. But most importantly, it connected to readers in ways I never imagined. It was my first novel, and what mattered most to me and what I'll always really treasure are the messages I got from readers about how they felt seen in the pages of this book for sometimes the first time, especially around kink and gender. And that was what, to me, has been the most important thing about this book. And it's why I wanted to bring it back and bring it back right. So for those of you who are like original fans of Roving Pack, here's the original super thick first edition. It had a lot of layout problems. It had tons and tons of layout problems. I found it kind of charming. I'm an old zinester, but it was problematic. And so the new edition of Roving Pack, all the layouts fixed. It's beautiful. And it's also a real ebook. So what many people didn't know is when it released in 2012, ebooks were still kind of mysterious, or they at least were for those of us in the indie publishing world. And I didn't really trust them, and nobody really knew what to do with them. So it was never a real ebook. And for the last 12 years, if somebody wanted an ebook, I would mail them like PDF, like send them a PDF. That's not a real ebook. It's now a real ebook. So the re-release has happened so that we could fix all the layout issues. We could have it as a real ebook. And I'm just so grateful to all of you for being here and being excited about this book. And those of you who have been like fans of Roving Pack for a long time, it means the absolute world to me. And I can't believe we're here. I decided to re-release Roving Pack a month ago, which is perhaps one of the most chaotic feral things I have ever done. I was at a book release with a friend. We were attending, and I was sitting there before it started, and I had turned to him and I was like, I'm going to re-release Roving Pack for its birthday. And he was like, oh, really cool. When's that? And I was like, next month. And then the next day we were going to Seattle to go to like a romance book event, and Amtrak has Wi-Fi, which is amazing. And it was like 5 in the morning, and I emailed all these fantastic writers from the Amtrak, and I was like, "Hey, so Roving Pack's turning 12. Do you want to come? Do you want to come play?" And they all said yes because I love them. So massive, massive thank you to all of tonight's readers, which we're going to get to really soon. I am so, so grateful to them for coming to play and be part of this. It's any of you who have followed me or my work at all probably know that this has been an incredibly brutal year for me. But the rainbow lining has really been that I've learned a hell of a lot about what I value and who I am and what matters. And so much of that is actually what mattered to me when I was living in the world that these characters inhabit. And it's about community, and it's about chosen family, and it's about art by your own rules. And I'm so excited to be re-releasing Roving Pack in a beautiful way so that you all can enjoy it, and be kickstarting this new era of work. And spoiler, I'm releasing a new novella in January that you'd only know if you're here. So spoilers that nobody else knows. So with that said, huge thank you to tonight's readers, and special thank you to Wolf, who did all the new layout for this book. Wolf Robbie did all the new layout and cover design and solved all of these issues, including like 3 nights ago at 2 in the morning when we were fighting with the internet overlords to get everything approved so that it could be available for purchase today for this event. And it is. So massive, massive thank you to Wolf for that. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to Katie Diamond, who was the cover artist for Roving Pack, who has a much better archive than I do and saved the original source files so that we could have high-res files for this book for the re-release, which was magical because I sure didn't have those. And thank you so much to all of you for being here. I'm going to stop talking. Thank you to Evan for hosting the Zoom side of this stuff tonight so that I could focus on having fun with all of the writers. And I'm actually going to be the first reader, so I don't think I need to introduce myself. But I'm going to read from early in the book. You don't really need to know anything other than the main character is that person. Their name is Click. They have just returned to fictional Portland, Oregon, after a disastrous relationship that has ended, and they are crashing with their chosen brother in an apartment now that they no longer live in Jacksonville, Florida. Don't move to Florida, kids. Date, September 10th, 2002. It's good to see that the GSA kids haven't taken over while I was away. Quirk doesn't even really have that many GSA kids, and the ones who do come mostly stick to themselves, and the street punks do the same. Sometimes the volunteers try to get us to include them in decisions about the space, but they don't push that too hard. After all, for the GSA kids, Quirk is just a place to hang out, and for us, it's home. I'm not really a street punk, but close enough. The GSA kids never have enough respect for anything important. Their parents always drive them to and from Quirk. Oh, Quirk is the Queer Youth Center. Sorry, I should say that. So they don't have to take the bus. They show up with these big steaming takeout boxes of noodles and tofu, and the rest of us are usually in the kitchen eating store-brand mac and cheese that someone donated. Okay, so to be honest, all my friends are the ones eating it. The GSA kids mostly don't have that much respect for the space. They come and make a mess and fucking leave it for like their mother is here and is going to follow them around cleaning up like I guess she does at home. The rest of us don't have mothers, so we know we have to clean up our own shit. They are just pretty useless and not very political. They come to hang out and dance and always want to play pool with us, but the pool table is our turf, so when they come over, we just finish the game and go outside to smoke. Okay, I don't smoke, obviously, I'm straight edge, but I always go outside with everyone else. Date, September 12th, 2002. Buck and his new girlfriend were both out this afternoon. Buck's the main character's chosen brother. And I was hella lonely. I went out this morning to put in job applications for a bunch of places, bookshops and grocery stores mostly, but also this new dog spa that just opened not too far from Quirk. Hopefully, someone will get back to me soon. Buck's girlfriend works both her jobs today, but came to let me in after getting off from the bookstore and before heading to the bar. Buck won't be home until late, and I've got to keep everything clean, so there's really nothing to do all day. Finally, I decided to call this dyke named Kirsten I'm sort of friends with to see if she wanted to come over and keep me company. I called Quirk, and luckily Gus was around the office to give me Kristen's phone number. I got all nervous before I called her and dragged the phone around the kitchen door and sat in the middle of the living room floor because the cord doesn't reach all the way to the couch. Kristen's older, like 22 or something, and has been dating Saucer, who's a street punk junkie who's been around Quirk a long time. Kristen's girlfriend Saucer is in jail for a parole violation and is way old, like 24. Yes, this has been hilarious to revisit, just saying. It was funny when I wrote it time-wise, and now it's really anyway. After this, she won't even be able to come to Quirk anymore. So Saucer's been on the street since she was little, 12 or some shit. I don't know what happened to her family. That's not the kind of shit you ask someone, and it's not exactly like we're that close. Mostly she sleeps in Paranoia Park with the het punks. I know she fights a lot too. I think it's mostly to protect folks like her little street sister Hope, who catches a lot of shit from the skinheads. Saucer always keeps her hair dyed black, and she's covered in tattoos. Even her face and hands. It's mostly all stick and poke stuff. She got a bunch of ex-girlfriends' names up and down her arms, separated by track marks, lots of stars, some cartoon characters, and a straight edge from when she was really young. I think Saucer is hot. If she weren't with Kristen, I'd totally try to get with her. She and Kristen have been together a while now. Kind of a weird couple, but what do I know? Kristen said Saucer had told her she could fuck whoever she wanted while Saucer was locked up. It was going to be at least a couple of weeks, and she planned to get some action from her cellmate. Kristen is sort of this grungy butch and not really all that hot, but still cute enough. She picked up after a couple of rings and seemed surprised it was me calling, but remembered who I was. I told her I was crashing at my brother's place and it would be great to see her. She said she had to stop by her work later, but if I wanted, she could come visit me first. I had the place to myself, so I gave her the address and waited. The apartment door locks automatically when it closes, so when Kristen buzzed the door, I had to prop it open with a phone book to run downstairs and let her into the building. She walked around the apartment for a while, looking at Buck's girlfriend's paintings. They're mostly half-finished images of babies sinking into fire, stuff like that. She said it was really good. I came up behind her while she was looking closely at one of the paintings and started to play with the short hairs at the base of her neck. She was wearing an A shirt with some ratty jeans, and I could see all the muscles in her back ripple when I touched her. She turned around and pushed me up against the wall with a purple unicorn and started kissing me hard. I wanted to actually fuck her, but I started getting worried that Buck was going to get back, and I'm not supposed to have folks over without them knowing, so I told Kristen she should probably go. She was all hot and bothered and started whining because I wasn't going to fuck her, and I kissed her one last time at the door. I don't know what I'm doing with her. It's probably not the best decision I've ever made. She hangs around all the gutter punks, but goes home every night to her damn parents in the suburbs. So that is from early in Roving Pack. And our first reader, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Thomas Ford. So Mike is so I guess I should say how I introduce people for readings. I'm going to read their real bios, but I'm going to say delightful things about them first that I love. So Mike and I first met in New Orleans at Saints and Sinners Queer Literary Conference, and we instantly bonded about tattoos and queer stories and our mutual love of tiny, tiny dogs. And he and I sort of infamously once made a queer literary bingo game to play when we both had books that were finalists for Lambda Literary Awards, and we knew we weren't going to win. He's also one of my very best queer writer friends ever, and I am so delighted he's here. So his real bio is that Michael Thomas Ford is the author of numerous books for both young readers and adults. His novels for teenagers include Every Star That Falls, HarperCollins 2023, Love and Other Curses, HarperCollins 2019, and Suicide Notes, HarperCollins 2008. A five-time winner of the Lambda Literary Award for LGBTQ books, he has also been a finalist for the Shirley Jackson Award, the Bram Stoker Award, the Firecracker Alternative Award. He lives in rural Ohio with his husband and dogs, where he gardens, collects flannel shirts, and waits impatiently for Mothman to pay him a visit. Find out more at michaelthomasford.com. And now, Mike, it's all you.
Yay. That is all true. It's funny, I was sitting here thinking about this because my piece is also about teenagers, but they're very different, kind of boring teenagers. But I was thinking, I've been up since 3:30 because I had to take a friend to a colonoscopy. And I was sitting here thinking, when I was in my 20s, we all took each other to HIV appointments and stuff. And now we're all in our 50s and 60s and taking each other to colonoscopies. And it's kind of nice to be boring now, and because it means we're still alive. But I was thinking while Sassafras was reading about how her character and my character had very different lives. Anyway, this story is called All Souls, and it is from an anthology that's coming out next year called Don't Ask, Ghosts Tell, edited by Cira Medeiros and Vince Liagano. It's a charity anthology that's going to be benefiting Modern Military Association. And so they asked us to do stories that had something to do with the military and something to do with ghosts, which is one of the odder combinations I've ever been asked to do. So this story is about a boy whose older brother was drafted into the Vietnam War. I wanted to write about that experience in some way. And the brother came home, and like a lot of soldiers who came home from Vietnam, had a lot of mental issues and ends up committing suicide, which happens before the story begins. And so this boy is dealing with that. And he's also dealing with the fact that he's realized he has feelings for one of the boys in his Dungeons and Dragons group. And these things all collide in this story. So he's kind of just had a traumatic moment that's brought all this to the forefront, and now has to go to the movies with all of his friends to see Jaws, because it is the fall of 1975, and that's what we all did back then, was we went and we saw Jaws. So that's what's happening. This boy, whose name is Charlie, is at the movies with his friends. The boy he has feelings for is named Todd, and the other two are called Brad and Morris, but they don't really matter in this scene. But now you know what their names are. You guys better put out after all the money I'm spending on you tonight, Brad said as he settled into his seat at the Razzle Dazzle. He chuckled at his own joke while the other three shook their heads. Brad was seated on the aisle with Morris beside him, then Todd, and finally Charlie. Charlie had a tub of buttered popcorn on his lap and held a Coke in his right hand. His left hand rested awkwardly on the shared armrest, and when he felt Todd's arm brush against his, he quickly grabbed the popcorn bucket and hugged it to his chest. He relaxed a bit when the lights went down and the movie started, at least as much as he could relax knowing what was to come. After his first viewing of Jaws, he'd been reluctant to go swimming, even in the community pool. Like millions of other people, he now feared sharks were lurking in every body of water, waiting for him to venture in. He sensed his friends felt the same way, as none of them had suggested going swimming in the lake even once during the summer. This was a relief to him for more than one reason, as there was something more frightening than even a great white lurking in those waters. Given that the movie had been out for months and the inescapable discussion about it, he was certain that there wasn't anyone in America who hadn't seen it. Yet, judging from the startled screams and audible gasps of surprise that erupted around him as the shark claimed each new victim, there were apparently people for whom this was a new experience. Charlie felt a little jealous of them, seeing it for the first time. As the story played out, Charlie lost himself in it, so that by the time Police Chief Brody, Marine Biologist Hooper, and grizzled fisherman Quint were engaged in their final hunt for the massive shark, He'd forgotten that he wasn't there on the boat with them. Then he felt something touch his hand. It was Todd's little finger, resting gently alongside his own. Realizing this, Charlie experienced a tingle of excitement, electric and dangerous, course through him. His stomach fluttered, and to his horror, he stiffened in his pants. He sat in the dark, terrified to move, waiting for Todd to move, for Todd to realize that they were touching and be disgusted by the fact. When Todd didn't move, let his finger lay alongside Charlie's without pulling away, Charlie then started worrying about why. Did Todd not realize what was happening? Was this all accidental? Or was there meaning behind it? Had Todd put his hand there, just like that, on purpose? The hardness in Charlie's pants grew unbearable, and not just because of the physical discomfort. It was proof that something was very, very wrong with the way he felt. A betrayal by his own body that was both inexcusable and impossible to ignore. It terrified him how a few inches of bare flesh pressed together could ignite a fire so bright and hot that it threatened to set the entire theater ablaze. He wanted very much to press his finger more firmly against Todd's, as a test. Would Todd press back? Or would the increased pressure make him realize what was happening and finally pull away? Charlie didn't think he could bear either answer, and so he sat there, frozen, watching the movie, but incapable of thinking about anything other than the thoughts that raced through his head, more thrilling than any on-screen action, more terrifying than a shark 1,000,000 times the size of the one that was devouring the orca. Too soon the movie ended and the lights came up. Todd, stretching, broke his connection to Charlie. "That was the best," he said. And Charlie, knowing he meant the movie, but hoping he meant much more than that, could only say, "Yeah." Outside the theater, before they went separate ways, Morris said, "Halloween is on a Friday this year. We're 16 now, which is kind of old to go trick-or-treating. Brad and I were thinking we should have a party." He looked at Charlie. "And we're thinking your cabin at the lake would be the best place to do it." "The only place," said Brad. "If we do it at any of our houses, our parents will hang around and we won't be able to do anything fun." "We won't invite too many people," Morris assured Charlie, "and we'll help clean up so your parents won't even have to know there was a party." "We can get beer," Brad said. "And I can score some weed from my sister's boyfriend. It will be a blast." Charlie didn't know what to say. The last thing he wanted to do was hang out at the cabin where his brother killed himself. But Morris and Brad seemed so excited about the idea and were staring at him, waiting for an answer. "Don't worry," Todd said. "I won't let Brad do anything stupid this time." Todd's assurance was all Charlie needed to decide. "Sure," he said. "Cool," Brad said, like he was already sitting by the fire with a beer in one hand and a joint in the other. "Are we doing costumes?" Morris asked. "Definitely," Todd said. "It's Halloween." Brad started to protest, but Todd cut him off. "Cindy Brimmer will be way more into kissing a werewolf football player than a plain old human one. She'll probably let you score a touchdown." Brad grinned stupidly. "Aroo," he said. Brad's an idiot, by the way. Brad and Morris went in one direction while Charlie and Todd walked in the other, as they lived only a few blocks apart. "I hope you didn't feel like you had to say yes about the party," Todd said. "If you think it might be a problem, we can tell the guys it's off." "No, it's okay," said Charlie. "My folks never go there anyway now. They won't even know. I'll just say I'm spending the night with you guys. They won't ask where." "I think it will be fun," Todd said. "I just have to think of a costume. What are you going to go as?" "I don't know," said Charlie. "Well, we've got 2 weeks," Todd said. "We'll come up with something." They parted when they reached Todd's street, and Charlie continued on alone. As he approached his house, he saw that someone was sitting on the front steps, illuminated by the porch light. It was a man, but no one Charlie recognized. His parents' station wagon was parked in the driveway, and he wondered why the man hadn't rung the bell if he was there to see them. It was like he was waiting for Charlie. And since it's a ghost story, that's all I'm going to tell you. But if you read it, you get to find out who that man was.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you so much. That is delightful. Oh my goodness. I love everything about today. This is
What's scarier than being a teenage queer?
That's the scariest shit ever. No
Yeah.
matter when. Yikes. Oh my
But
gosh.
such a difference. Like your teenage punk queers had and my very vanilla teenage suburban boys, but still the same anxiety, right? The same,
Same anxiety, different time, different
yeah,
place.
different
I,
times,
I
different,
realized I didn't say this was set in the early 2000s. I realized how clear that became when there was a phone book.
yeah. It's how little things don't, or how amazing how little things change.
Real. It's true. Everything stays so very much the same. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, Mike, thank you so much. Our next reader is going to be Karen Taylor. Karen and I first met when we were both working in nonprofits in New York. I had been hired for a job I had absolutely no business having, running a very chaotic drop-in center in Queens, where I had never been. I'd never been to the borough of Queens until I took that job. And we were coming back from a statewide conference in Albany, and I was standing on a subway platform, and I had a checkerboard suitcase at the time. And Karen, who I had seen like doing very smart, talky things at this conference, um, was like, I also flagged safer sex, like across the subway platform to me. And I was like, who is this? We need to be friends because I have been at this conference that felt very stuffy for several days. And so I was like, you. And then we started talking. And Karen was an incredible support to me in my nonprofit career and also in the literary world. And I adore her to pieces. And her real bio is Karen Taylor has written several short stories for queer and kinky anthologies and recently published her first poetry collection. Yay! Mothers and Other People. Look at that. Look at that. Where did I lost my place? I got to, yes, she lives in Queens, New York, and recently celebrated 25 years with her spouse, author editor Laura Antonou.
Thank you. You'll be happy to know I'm still working in the borough and I'm at another nonprofit that's like 4 blocks from where we used to go.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love that.
And still in touch with some of the old queers at because I used to run an LGBTQ senior center. And so I'm still in touch with a number of the folks there. I'm going to read 2 poems. I'm going to read one that is hopefully will resonate with a lot of people here around some of the challenges with family. And then I'm going to read one that's very sexy because I thought I'll go to both of those places today. So this one is in my poetry collection, Mothers and Other People. And by the way, that photo is the photo that my parents sent out as a birth announcement with the dog that I grew up with. And so this is called, and raise your hand if this sounds familiar, The Grown-Ups Table. My grandmother's oak dining room table magically expands for the holidays. Matching carved chairs appear from parts unknown. Lace-trimmed tablecloth is ironed. Matching linen napkins pressed, then set with bridal rose china pulled from the hutch for grandpa and grandma, 2 aunts, 2 uncles, my parents. In the next room, my brother, 5 cousins, and me tilt precariously on folding chairs dragged in from the garage. Knees knock against rickety card tables, elbows bump, spill milk-filled Dixie cups, soak folded paper towels. We pass potatoes, toss dinner rolls, stifle giggles, ignore the grown-ups. My oldest cousin arrives one year in a brown suit once worn by his father. He brings a girl in a green and gold dress and a diamond ring once worn by my grandmother. 2 more chairs are added to the grown-ups table. The six of us left at the card tables roll our eyes, shrug, fill our chinette disposables, dig elbows into each other's ribs, count ourselves lucky to be at the fun table. The oak table expands, conjures a longer tablecloth and two more matching chairs. A younger cousin with a shiny new husband parade through. Ignore our dented card table where single I sit with her single older sister. My grandfather dies. Our first Thanksgiving without him. Married cousins drag another card table and more folding chairs from the garage for toddlers. Then return to the oak table, leaving us babysitting our first cousins once removed. My brother brings his lover, a handsome man. Year after year, we sit together with our oldest single cousin at the card table, sharing wry smiles over soiled paper plates, our Dixie cups now filled with wine. And now, an unpublished one called Shoes, a Mystery. A pair of black loafers appeared in our house as if they belonged there. Soft leather, with thin soles, only a few scratches at the heel. I put them on once, experimentally. They were a bit roomy, nor did they fit my housemate, who assumed the pair belonged to me incorrectly. When did the shoes first arrive? We studied them. How long had they been there, sitting patiently in the hall closet next to the winter boots and the single high-heeled sandal, which was kept in memory of that special night, a story that had grown in the telling and requires a dramatic reveal. Okay. It was a loft party in Soho, words I never imagined would be part of my life. We were invited by friends of friends, champagne and cocaine and faces from page 6. She was dressed in beads and a bottle green skirt, pushed me against a door and kissed me like it would save her life. Took a breath, kissed you the same way. The door opens, we tumble onto the bed, unbuttoning, discarding, burying ourselves, mouths and fingers, slick and sliding. She is writhing. We are wrapped around each other. Did the door open? But doesn't matter. Her climax, guttural and rhythmic. You push her to another. I shudder. Ecstasy coursing through me, we howl, growl, pulse, grind ourselves into insensibility, tangled in sheets and limbs, panting, slowly spiraling back into our bodies. Languid, she opens her eyes, thanks us. My spine tingles. I recognize her now, her smoky voice, familiar from the concert we saw last week. You start to speak, she presses a finger to your lips. You kiss, then suck the finger. She chuckles, playfully nudges us off the bed. We pull clothing from the pile, stumble from the room back into the party. No one notices. We start laughing, run down the stairs. I break the straps of one of my sandals. You hail a taxi. We fall into it, still laughing, staring at each other in wonder. Did that really happen? I toss the broken sandal out the window as the cab drives over the Williamsburg Bridge. You insist on keeping the other a memento of the evening. These black loafers had no story, or perhaps they do, and it has not yet been told. Or perhaps their entire purpose is to be a mystery. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love this. This is so great. Oh my God. This is like the best. This is like Roving Pack's birthday party, and I'm getting to read like and hang out with some of my favorite writers and hear delightful stories, many of which I've never heard before, and I am just like the happiest. This is so good. Thank you so much, Karen. Oh my God. Um, our next reader is going to be Cooper Lee Bombardier. I first saw Cooper read when I was 18 or 19, very much the same location, time, space as these characters. He was on tour with a spoken word group, and I was sitting cross-legged on the front row of some punk venue, like on concrete, like totally enamored with all of my friends, and all my friends were like, "Have you seen Cooper read? Have you seen Cooper read?" And I was very, very excited about it. And I think I very shyly went up afterwards and like handed you a zine. Um, and so I am quite I've just always been, very, very amused by that beginning, and I'm very delighted that we became buddies. So, that said, Cooper's actual bio that is not my memories of being a total like fanboy was Cooper Lee Bombardier is a writer and visual artist based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the author of Pass with Care memoirs. He teaches in the MFA in Creative Nonfiction program at University of King's College. Cooper.
Hey, thank you so much, Sassafras. Congratulations on 12 years and a re-release. It's really exciting, and thanks for inviting me to be here. And I talk about you all the time to my students because students are always freaking out about having the perfect causes and conditions in which to write. And I'm like, whatever, Sassafras wrote a fucking novel on their notes app on the subway, commuting to work and on the lunch break, and then upgraded to like a tablet or something, right? So I talk about you all the time because I think like your discipline and ability to make space for your writing, regardless of what you were doing to get by for cash, is pretty awesome. So I think of you and admire your work ethic all the time. And so I'm going to read actually from a novel in progress. It's called Salt Junk. And basically what you need to know from what I'm going to read, it's from the beginning, but I'm going to jump around a little bit. Ishmael is a 40-something, middle-aged trans man on the precipice of a mental health crisis. And he escapes his life to travel across the country, and unexpectedly at an East Coast trans health conference receives a call to adventure to join an expedition of trans citizen eco-scientists to save the whales. So call me Ish. A couple of years back, don't even worry about which one, the pressure of confinement and darkness that lay dormant within my chest for years, like a generation of cicadas, a plaguing hunger to be anywhere else or to be nothing at all, a silent oblivion, threatened to burst out in a glorious swarm. I forget that a whistling rise, clear wings, overtakes my mind in circadian timed intervals, lulled by the fragile happiness of the fallow years in between. Spells where I fancy that perhaps even I too could be a normal human being, satisfied by selling off the prime days of my life to some corporate pyramid scheme that surveils the desires of my downtime, only to repackage them and sell them back to me as unique ideas. My dog is just going to bark when I'm on Zoom. It's just what's going to happen. Working, always working to live in a city whose preciousness and beauty are evacuated by those who rush to invest in the vibe. Couldn't I just be satisfied like a normal human being to keep working more and more, to afford to live in a city that superficially celebrates people like me, while in fact is surrounded by a country that wants us dead, and especially does not want me teaching their precious children how to write things as equally useless and dangerous as stories. My darkness bears down on my bones, makes my cartilage brittle, weights me, creases my forehead, and I catch myself lingering at the high points while biking across bridges. The drizzle and endless gray makes an appeal on oblivion's behalf, and too often I have been a willing listener to its allure. If I could catch my plague in time before it erupts and leaves in its wake countless hollow exoskeletons and decimated trees, I will quit everything, upset the balance of every stabilizing force in my life, and find my way towards elsewhere. And these locust intervals of emergence, I'll live more than I ever seem to manage to in the slow and steady years in between. So, in the precipice of this emergence, I quit my relationship, quit my teaching jobs, all three of them, quit the city, and quietly drove away one afternoon, pointing my ancient Toyota truck towards the blackening blue horizon. Once I escaped cities and suburbs and reached the desolate flanks of America, I was as alone as I've ever been, and only then did the swarm in my head subside its awful, stridulating music. Once I hit roads winding through red sandstone cliffs, the urge to run my truck across the eastbound guardrail dissipated. Once I wound my way through the flat green places where fireflies signal their starry seductions, I remembered to breathe. Breathe. Then I followed my curiosities and cravings, sight saw and rubbernuts, camped and meandered, and visited friends and acquaintances along the way. Eventually, with trepidation and curiosity, I made my way back to the coast of my upbringing. So then basically ends up at this trans health conference, and I will pick up there. On the second afternoon of the conference, I wandered, without having made a conscious decision to do so, into cocksure, a closed section for trans men. I'm sorry, I have to deal with this dog for 1 second.
I find everything about this moment completely delightful, and I am also completely shocked that Sirius is I woke her. Oh, I was gonna say she's asleep. Well, hi. Go back to sleep. Sorry, I was entertaining with Sirius. You're muted, Cooper.
Won't let me unmute. Okay, there we go. Cool. Sorry about that. 4 years in, dog's gonna bark during Zoom. Okay, so I wandered into cocksure, a closed session for trans men about bottom surgery options. Unlike other sessions, gathered attendees were few in number and seated in a circle of chairs. When I walked far enough into the breakout room to take note of the seating arrangements, I nearly turned on heel to hoof a fast exit, but then the facilitator spotted me and patted a pamphlet and handout covered chair beside him. Great. I was familiar by name and reputation with the facilitator. Not too many years after this last year, I realized that there were now enough of us that I no longer personally knew, was acquainted with, or at least familiar with the names of most of the trans guys existing in the United States. The facilitator was a little bit older than me, in his mid-40s, I suppose, and he'd started to trans at a much earlier age than I had. It had been nearly 10 years for me, and I already felt like a dinosaur. I scoffed in private at kids who just turned 30, who'd been on T for 2 years, that positioned themselves as elders and dads of the community on the socials. Some titles are meant only to be given, are earned, not self-appointed from a drop-down menu. I sat down, feeling already buckled inside a barrel, speeding toward an edge of the falls of things I wasn't really sure I wanted to deal with. The facilitator wore a crisp Oxford collar unbuttoned at the base of his thick neck. With an affected shyness, he raked the side of his thick but perfectly trimmed ginger beard with manicured nails. I coughed down a laugh, imagining that he would start by asking us to pledge for his fraternity. The facilitator shot me a look, then cleared his throat. Since this is a closed session, he said, I'd like everyone to introduce himself. First, names, how long you've been on T. Pronouns, interjected a young person in cut-off shorts and a sleeveless tee. All black, but now faded into a monochromatic brown by hard-wearing, little washing, and anarchy. They glowered at the facilitator for misgendering them out of existence in the first 5 seconds of the workshop. Yes, first name, pronouns, how long you've been on T, and why you're here for this workshop, the facilitator said, with an unflinching manliness that reverberated deep from within his barrel chest. He had nothing to worry about. His professionalism seemed quite developed. He stood, hips forward and legs apart, clipboard tucked beneath his left arm, and his small, thick hands jammed deep into pockets of his khakis. He pointed down at me with his chin. Let's start to my left. The facilitator sat. Great. I felt compelled to stand. Trans guy whack-a-mole. There can be only one. My name is Ishmael, I said. Renaming oneself as an adult should be a standard practice, in my opinion. You were given at birth one name that might only take you so far, but you might well need another one to carry you through your adult life. I chose the name of a biblical bastard, son of a woman who was either servant or slave, depending on whose interpretation you're reading. A handmaiden forced to bear a child for crusty and fertile old Abraham, who was then excommunicated and forced to live in the wilderness with her baby. She was told by an angel her bastard son would grow up to become a wild ass of a man. On brand. Meanwhile, Abraham got to play God with Hagar and Ishmael's lives and founded three religions that in a few thousand years would seem to have forgotten their common primogenitor. But anyway, the thing I loved about my adult name, the name I chose for myself, was that I could trim it by a third and it could, in a syllable, in a sound, sum up the ambivalence that powered my plague. But call me Ish. Each man in the group mumbled a monosyllabic welcome. I sat, and for each of them, I did the same. I barely enunciated sounds, I hope communicated goodwill. And here, because it was a closed group, and I'm not always a wild ass of a man, I will refrain from describing in detail the others who are present, except the anarchists, sorry about using you as a foil for transmask energy. The reasons guys shared for showing up were quite vulnerable, so I felt a bit off for stating curiosity as my reason by the time the introductions made it all the way around the circle. But it wasn't a lie. I was curious. I was also apprehensive, unsure, and unconvinced that the existing options available could ever help me arrive at a stronger sense of wholeness than what I had now. There was plenty to fear in the unknown. My cock, as I knew and enjoyed it, would be a lot to sacrifice to an undetermined and unguaranteed outcome. I didn't relish the inherent crapshoot of losing what I already had, sexual pleasure being the most compelling of them all. Two surgeons loomed over the workshop. They did not introduce themselves like we, the potential future consumers of their wares, had been asked to. After we laid bare our souls and verbally dropped our drawers, voicing our most tentative secret desires, the facilitator introduced the doctors with a tone of reverence that bordered on pandering. The doctors simply nodded in assent to the facilitator's glowing intros, their wrinkle-free faces luminesced like gods, and then a template slideshow glowed to life on a screen that had floated down in silence from the ceiling into the room. I listened with intent when I wasn't somewhat orbiting outside my own body during the most graphic and technical explanations of bottom surgery, especially the in-progress pictures in the slides, the careful butterflying and complex origami of flesh narrated in deadpan effect by each surgeon in turn. It's a lot easier to turn an outie into an innie, I remember a salty, zero fucks trans femme elder quipping to me long ago at a bar, than it is to turn an innie into an outie. She'd finished with a raspy laugh, dragging hard on her smoke as she stared down my young fawn eyes, which telegraphed my naked longing to one day become a strong buck. My voice tightened, focus on the screen. Why would I need to go through so much complicated medical intervention? All of this just to make visible what, for me, was already there, alive and wanting. Breathe. One doctor specialized in this kind of procedure and the other specialized in that kind. And soon after, the charts and stats and the blood and guts flickered to a black rectangle reading in a small print end of slideshow. Their discussion turned into a verbal sword fight between them over who was the better Pygmalion. Plastic surgeons are weirdos, and those who specialize in sculpting trans bodies are total freaks. These two characters, with their hairy forearms, off-scrubbed hands, perfectly fit bodies, and their eyes dancing across all of us present like a room full of freshly gessoed canvases awaiting anointing by their creative genius, were no exception. I began to fuzz out again, overcapacitated with so much information and options. Never mind the simple imaginings of resources required and how one would even go about the process of gathering them amid working so hard just to simply exist. Sure, I wanted to be other than a sort of hybrid. I wanted to escape the core vestige of constant in-betweenness. I wanted the freedom of congruence. I longed to experience pleasure in my own skin without caveats and footnotes and explanations and all the add-on gear that sometimes precluded spontaneity. Whereas for the non-trans, one's natal sex inscribes one's gender, I knew, as most trans people know, it is gender that produces genitals. In whatever corporeal form a lover might fancy in that moment, I'd embody a prosthesis and bring my desire to life with pure willpower. And yes, artistry, to share in a relational act of magical thinking that translated to a felt presence of shared pleasure. But oh, to have nothing in between. to truly feel, to have my external parts match how I know them to be real. This part has always felt impossible to explain to the non-gender dysphoric, but it is also true that most people's bodies come with caveats, hesitations, and explanations. We need to be careful students. To be the authors of our own bodies, to write ourselves into existence, is a gift not only relegated to trans people. Everybody's body is a book. The workshop ended with a round of tepid applause. Several participants with questions crowded the doctors, who flashed straight white teeth and handed out business cards. I moved to quietly slink my overwhelmed brain out of the room when the anarchist caught my elbow. Without speaking, they handed me a printed half sheet. I glanced at the paper and then back at the person in faded black, who smiled with warmth, then turned out of the room and disappeared into the milling crowds in the hallway. I scanned the conference room. They hadn't handed these flyers out to the other guys. Weird. My eyes came back into focus as I looked down at the sheet in my hands. It read, "Wanted, a few good men of trans experience who want to save the world by saving the whales. Interested citizen scientists and hardworking green hands wanted for voyage, safety not guaranteed. To join us, text whale to 508-487-XXXX. As goes the whales, so goes the world." And that's it. Thank you.
Oh my God. I am so excited. I love everything about this. Ah, that was incredible. Thank you, Cooper. Oh my God. That was absolutely stunning. I cannot wait to read the new book. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Our next reader is going to be Matilda. Where do I even start? Matilda is iconic. And Matilda has also been one of the biggest supporters of Roving Pack before it was even published. Matilda blurbed the original release. And not only did she encourage me not to tone down the gender and the leather, which were things that were kind of making people a little nervy before Roving Pack released. But Matilda also made the suggestion that what I thought was the end of Roving Pack actually was not the end of Roving Pack. And she was 100% right, and is the reason why Roving Pack ends the way that it does. And I'm forever grateful to Matilda for that. So Matilda's actual bio is Matilda Bernstein Sycamore is the award-winning author, most recently of Touching the Art, a finalist for the Washington State Book Awards in 2024. Her previous title, The Freezer Door, was a New York Times Editor's Choice and a finalist for the Penn Gene Stein Book Award, winner of a Lambda Literary Award and an American Library Association Stonewall Honor Book. She's the author of 6 books and the editor of 6 anthologies, most recently Between Certain Death and a Possible Future, queer writing on growing up with the AIDS crisis. Sycamore's next novel, Pterodactyl, will be published by Coffee House in November 2025. Yay, Matilda.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here, an honor to be with everyone. I'm going to read just a very short, the very beginning of my next novel, Pterodactyl. It doesn't come out till November 2025, so this is a sneak preview. I'm just going to read right from the beginning. The first time I met Sid, she was on the dance floor in a silver and gold tube dress pulled over her head, except it wasn't just a dress because the fabric went on. And somehow she knew the exact spot on the dance floor where the light would shine right on her. Or that's how it felt when she was writhing inside this tube of fabric, pulling it up and down, a hand out and a hand in, and then her face exposed in harsh white makeup and black lipstick with long glittering eyelashes. And then she rolled onto the floor. She was crawling, or more like bending, but also she was completely still in the bouncing lights. And all this was happening on a crowded dance floor at the Limelight while I was sipping my cocktail, and I didn't know what I was seeing. I mean, it felt like this went on forever. How many songs? It was like there wasn't even music anymore, just my body inside the fabric peeking out. And then suddenly, she pulled the dress up around her neck like a huge, elegant collar. And underneath, she was wearing a gold bodysuit with a silver metallic skirt that flared out, with ballet slippers also painted gold. And she walked right up to me and said, "What did you think?" And I had no idea how she even saw me. But I must have mumbled something because then she took my hand and said, "Let's go upstairs, honey." And I thought we were going to the balcony, but we went up the stairs in the back. And at the top, she kissed the door person on both cheeks. And then we went inside. And there was a whole other dance floor there, the club inside the club. And she guided me over the bar and said, "I can't believe she's gone." And then she said it again. "I can't believe she's gone." And then she looked up at me and started laughing. "Oh, honey," she said, I totally thought. And then she just stopped right there. I didn't know if she thought it was someone else or if she thought, I really just didn't know. She said, "What are you drinking, honey?" But she didn't wait for my answer. She just ordered 2 vodka sours with grenadine. I love the color. And after I took one sip, I knew this would be my drink from then on. She poured some Coke on a coaster and then handed me a straw. And I made sure to snort half, but she motioned her hand like, "You take the rest." And when I was done, she handed me a big flat round pill and I swallowed it with the vodka sour. I was a little worried because I was already a bit coked up and alcohol and Coke mess with ecstasy, but I definitely knew not to turn down free drugs. I mean, wasn't this what was supposed to happen in New York? "Sid," she said. "Sid sidereal." "Terry," I said. "Pterodactyl." And she touched my back and said, "Where are your wings?" I could feel them right then. It was the way she touched me, like she was drawing my wings on. One by one, the others came upstairs and took their magic pills. I didn't know anyone yet, but when they saw me with Sid, it was like we were old friends. Sid was so high that her eyes would roll back whenever she wasn't speaking, and I was ready to go there. Jason kept petting her coat like it would take her to heaven, or maybe she was already in heaven. Bleached curly hair with dark roots, eyebrows dyed green, and she was wearing a big ratty faux fur coat and maybe nothing on underneath. And she touched my nose and said, "Twins." I looked at her nose and noticed her gold septum ring did match my silver one, and everything in her eyes. And then Stringbean arrived in clown makeup and ruffles, platforms that made her so tall that everyone had to look up to her. And Cleopatra with a giant red afro and tattered ball gown, and then Tara and Miel in matching suits and bleached hair with spit curls like jazz age style dyke twins. And eventually Sid said, "Is everyone ready?" And we all went downstairs to the coat check, and Sid picked up a box with her coat. And then we went outside and jumped in 2 cabs. I didn't usually take cabs in New York because I was still in love with the subway. But here I was with Sid, Jason, and Cleo, all of us squished together in the back seat. And Sid said Christopher Street Pier. And then soon enough, we were there, one cab and then the other, like we were in tandem. And I'll be honest here and say, I hadn't even been to the piers before. I mean, I saw Paris is Burning in high school when it played at the Egyptian. And then, of course, everyone started lip syncing to Madonna and practicing those moves. But that was about all. It was late and I didn't see anyone voguing, but there was music. And just as we started walking out onto the pier, this queen ran up behind us and said, "Esme." And Sid turned. And this queen said, "Girl, I thought you were dead." And Sid said, "I thought I was dead too." And this queen said, "Oh, honey, I've missed you and your messy makeup." And Sid said, "My messy makeup can't compare to you." And then she put her box down and opened her arms. And the 2 of them were jumping up and down. And Sid said, "Oh, Monique." And right about then, I started to feel this pounding inside. And I looked around to see if everyone else was feeling it too. And Monique said, "So are these your children, or did someone get lost on the way to the circus?" Monique was ready to read each one of us. And we just stood there in the way it takes a while to react when the X is really kicking in. And when Monique got to me, she said, "Girl, you're as tall as me and you've got them tranny shoulders, so why the freak show makeup?" And it felt like I'd been waiting for someone to say tranny shoulders all my life. Yes. What was I doing, wasting my time with the dead white men of the core curriculum when I could be so alive, right there with tranny shoulders, the air on my skin, so much air and that current going through my body, my eyes, yes, my eyes and lips. Yes, lips and tongue, and there it was, language, when I said, takes one to know one. Thank you.
Oh my God, Matilda. I love that. Ah! Ah, God. I adore you. Thank you so much. This is the best night. I love everything about this. The spoiler, write a book or re-release a book so you can just hang out with your favorite writers. This is great. I love this. Our next reader is going to be Tony Amato. And Tony is very special. Tony has been a queer family with me for a very long time. And Tony is also the editor of, it's true, we have like matching silver dollars. And I also have a Finders Keepers set. But Tony is also the original editor, content editor for Roving Pack. And he took my ridiculous and chaotic ideas for this novel, which I might add was written entirely out of order, completely out of order, and helped me sculpt it into a book that made sense. And I am eternally grateful for all of his support and guidance with that novel and for being for years and ongoing. So with that, his real bio is Tony Amato is a book husband, a teacher, a facilitator, and a longtime activist. For more than 30 years, he has coached, edited, and shepherded writers in nearly every writing category and some that blend, crossover, and create whole new genres. He is the recipient of the Theater Offensive Gender Hero Award and the Virginia Bigwoods Voices for Justice Award for his work with reach beyond domestic violence.
Oh, sassafras, finders, keepers. I'm gonna, ever since a beard on a bottle, I don't tear up much, but I'm having this allergy response tonight. It's just, I really love you. And I remember a young person many years ago helping their poor city fearful uncle get back on the bus after your book came out and telling you, someday, sassafras, young people are going to be writing to you and saying that they have like tattoos with like the cover of your book. And I don't think you entirely believed me. So congratulations 12 years later. And oh my God, I have to read after all of you. But before Laura, so I might survive tonight. So I'm going to, I kind of gave up on my writing a little while ago because of a lot of things. And not a little while ago, 20 years ago. So sassafras kind of roped me into this, and I found these old CDs, floppy disks that actually had my novel on it, and I was able to get some of it out. So I'm going to read the opening to this novel that I walked away from, and maybe this will get me back to it. It also is about a young person who has left home under not so great circumstances as you do. It's set in the very early 80s, possibly late 70s. And I think that's enough to get us going. Let me just expand my... It's a mercy. My mother used to tell me what the mind lets us forget. It's a mercy. Sometimes when I'm riding high in the cab of a trucker's rig, smelling diesel oil and old cigarette smoke, or listening to the jukebox in a diner, all shiny chrome and red tile, sometimes it turns out Mom was right. Harder to remember than to forget. That's when I most want to pop one of those little black pills I take from sleeping drivers' pockets, or use my fake ID to order another beer. Mom's proved right other times too. I'll wake up middle of the night in the bed of a woman who was tired of the smell of diesel, and I find my hands wrapped around her sleeping throat. Next morning, when she brings me a cup of coffee and asks me with a sweet smile why I'm on the couch and did I have a hard time sleeping, I'll answer through the smoke of my first cigarette, no. And did she sleep well? It's a mercy. I've never told her, my mom, that she was wise. A couple of times I've stood in a phone booth at the back of one of those sardine can eating houses, a handful of quarters stacked on the booth's ledge, and dialed a number in vain. The words all dry up like summer rain on hot asphalt when I hear her voice. Too much to explain. They haven't made enough quarters to keep the line open. The memories keep coming back. A woman sitting alone in a booth, waiting for her old man to come riding in, the barreling downshift of his rig and the hiss of hydraulic brakes, all Saturday night honky-tonk music as her foot taps and a hand strays up to push hair back from her forehead. Or a kid pestering for a hot fudge sundae while mom and dad talk low and fierce about the bill. Shit. Even the rhythmic thump of a headboard through the paper walls of a motel no-tell. Maybe I'm starting to understand without wanting to why Pop always had to be on the go. You pack it all up in a kit bag and hope that the miles between you and the thing that jogged your memory will create a buffer, a blind spot, like the one that keeps a trucker from seeing that smart-ass little Saab trying to pass on the downgrade. Tonight, there's nobody in this bed but me. Beside me on the bedstand, I've got one of those little cups that comes wrapped for hygiene, it says, and a plastic bag full of melted ice. I've got enough money to buy breakfast in the morning and maybe grab a pack of smokes at the gas station before I hit the road. It's easier to hitch a ride later on when the boys are feeling the loneliness of twilight bringing on a long, empty evening, but I want to get out of this town. I've grown too familiar with the faces of the restaurant across the street. Just this evening, a woman with a brown leather pocket bag as big as a saddlebag shook her fist at a boy crying because his dad had slapped him in the face for blowing bubbles in his milk through a straw. You want a knuckle sandwich? She asks him over her cold French fries, and my own knuckles go white around my coffee mug. I slapped a 10 down on my table, over tipping a surly waitress who moved too slow and stared at my flannel shirt and close-cropped hair. I had to get out of there. Pop was big on table manners, always pulling paper napkins out of metal dispensers for Greg and me to put on our laps before he took another thick bunch out for Mom to stuff in her pocketbook. I still wiped my lips before taking a drink, afraid to leave a greasy half circle on the glass. I pushed a few peas on my fork with my fingers once at a Howard Johnson's on the freeway to Florida. Pop grabbed my tray, the whole thing, and threw it on the ground near the orange plastic picnic table. You eat with the goddamn dog. You want to eat like one. Jake, our old mutt, had the rest of my meatloaf and gravy dripping from his whiskers before I even tore my eyes away from Pop's scowl. You had to look at him, pay attention when he was talking to you. You had to show respect. Pop wiped the brown bread from around the edge of his plate, sopping up blood and gravy from his T-bone. You ain't done with your supper. That wasn't a gift from God. That meatloaf cost me money. Pop took a French fry from Mom's plate. Don't come crying to me for something to eat later on. You go and waste a good meal like that. It's your own problem. You turn up hungry. Ain't no free rides in this family. Ketchup hung from the edges of his mustache. Go on, kid. Makes me sick to look at you. I ran across the parking lot to our bus, painted dark green all over with the Green Hornet written in squirrely white script over the windshield. Eddie had done that, added the lettering on a hot afternoon at a swap meet, and Greg came running over our table with an old collector's spoon he bought for $2. On the top of the handle was the head of a hooded man, some old cartoon book hero, the Green Hornet. So our bus had a name. I pushed up the latch on the door and folded it open. Jake followed me in and ran up the stairs. A cardboard box stood open, the edges stained orange from grease. 2 pieces of pepperoni pizza sat cold and hard on the round tray. I grabbed one and ran to the bunk bed built over the wheel guards and back. I plopped down next to Jake on my bunk, the bottom one, and flipped open a comic book as I nibbled on the dry crust. We were headed home, back up to Maine, after a month of selling black squirrel shooting T-shirts. Starting all over again like me in the morning, with my thumbs stuck out and my pack on my back. I have to find a laundromat next time I stop and my T-shirts are all sweaty and my jeans are heavy and dark with road dirt and grease. When I took off, I only had 1 pair, but I bought me another since. Brand new, at a Levi's store. Never anyone else's. I travel in my old ones, busted out at the knee, frayed a little in the crotch, and keep that new pair for dressing up to go out when I get to use my ID. But both are kind of funky now. The station on the set changes to a funny Target sign and lets out that high-pitched whine they play when the programming is done. My alarm clock telling me it's time to get some shut-eye, get rested up. I down the watery beer in my glass and open up a road map I lifted out of the glove compartment of the last trucker. Blue and red lines stretch out in a crazy spider's web. I can go anywhere I want, be whoever I feel like being, as long as I can find a ride. Chicago, maybe. I'd been there once, and Gramps had taken me along on one of his runs. All I remember is huge highways, and Gramps telling me there was a lake as big as the ocean. I can get there in a few days if I get lucky and hook up with a trucker. Maybe find a little place I can rent for a while for a few dollars, my own bed and a hot plate, a bathroom down the hall, a lock on my door. I turn off the set and listen to the sound of cars passing on the highway, headlights making patterns on the wall, thinking about hot dog vendors and flocks of seagulls sitting on the water's edge. I pull the blankets up around my head, only my nose and mouth sticking out, a habit I've had as long as I can remember, and put myself to sleep counting off names. Take each letter of the alphabet and list as many names as you think of that start with that letter. First girls, then boys. Somewhere around Jezebel, I drift off. A dream of litany of familiar places, one house in particular. It got so that I could recognize that nightmare furniture, a bureau or table, a certain set of stairs. Learned to tell my sleeping self to squeeze my eyes shut really hard to wake up before it got bad. Then there were the sneaky ones, the ones I couldn't wake up from. Or even if I did, they came right back as soon as sleep returned. Then I would turn on the flashlight I keep stashed under my mattress and read for hours, all huddled up beneath the blankets until dawn. Now I smoke, watching and listening to cars passing in the night. So thank you.
I love that I chaos gremlin getting you to pull that novel off of floppy disks. And now I'm not done because you're gonna finish the novel. I'm so committed. Now you're gonna finish. You've been telling me about that novel so long. And now I know you have it.
You know what? After what you have accomplished, especially this year, I live to obey, Neff. I live to obey.
That just got intense. Oh my. Let's never do that. Don't take orders from me. That was amazing. Oh my God, except do because finish your book. But oh my God, this is just the best. I'm so excited. Last and absolutely not least is Laura Antonou. So I first found the Marketplace series when I was working at a leather shop in downtown Portland. And I was obsessed because I had never seen books like this. I had never seen like a whole series of books that was like all leather world. And I was obsessed, and all my coworkers were obsessed, and we would sneak the books. Yes, that off the shelves and read them in the back room when we were definitely supposed to be selling people like vibrators and shit, and in like the storage closet because we couldn't afford to buy them, so we were reading and then we would like save up and like buy them one at a time. And then I moved to New York, and Laura and I became friends, and I was like, holy fuck, I've made it. What is this magical world? And then Laura also helped me finish my collection of first edition Marketplace, which is on my living room bookshelf and one of my favorite book series collections. So that said, Laura's real bio is Laura Antonou is a proud member of the Middle-Aged Guard. Laura Antonou is the author of the well-known Marketplace series of erotic novels and Rainbow Book Award-winning mystery, The Killer Wore Leather. Holder of the NLA and Pantheon of Leather Lifetime Achievement Awards, she nevertheless intends to keep living for quite some time. A popular speaker on topics related to alternative sexual practices, aka kinky sex, she has presented, taught, and ranted at over 150 conferences and events all over the world. Together with her wife, Karen Taylor, she has also written a ritually correct leather Passover Seder. Laura, all of you. you're muted.
Laura's actually unmuted. I'm not sure why the sound isn't working. Laura, do you want to try for a second without your headset on? Okay, and now see if you can unmute yourself.
It shows, I see a little red muty icon by Laura's name.
Yeah.
Oh, Karen in the comments says the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves, but
No, I've unmuted Laura though.
Thank you, tech support, Evan, for co-hosting.
No problem. Here, I'm also allowing people to unmute themselves just in case that is a problem. Laura, are you on a laptop or a computer? Because you might have like on your keyboard an option of turning your microphone off, which would override Zoom.
Karen in the comments is saying desktop. They're in the same room.
Okay. Laura, do you want to use Karen's technology? Oh, look at you guys. There you are.
Oh, Karen's muted.
Karen, you should be able to unmute now.
Turn your audio up. There. Okay, how about now?
That's perfect. We can hear you clear.
All right. Sorry about that. It worked before. Still have to figure these things out. So, Sassafras, I was saying that you arrived like a hurricane. You announced yourself and you came. It's the wife. And you certainly made it before you met me. And you are a star. And I have some really good news. And Tony, you'll be interested in this. I got the rights to the Marketplace books back. So I am in the process of reclaiming the manuscripts, re-releasing them, and building a new website, which will be up by the winter holiday times. So because you mentioned the Marketplace, Sassafras, I guess I'm going to read from a Marketplace story that is not yet published. And it will be in a collection that I'm right now calling Slaves of the Marketplace, or I may just release them all as individual short stories. So here we go. It has a title, but it kind of gives things away, so I'll hold on the title for now. And let me move that like this. Okay. Gay bars ain't all cinder block eyesores with no windows to shed sunlight on the furtive emotional wrecks who down far too many bottom shelf shots during a happy hour that ain't neither. But this one is. Not at all like the far more expensive cocktail menu, high-def giant screens of porno and near-porno music videos less than 3 blocks away. That place got drag nights with top local artists, bare-chested bartenders with bubble butts, and run nights for the leather clubs and their softball team, the Wranglers. Men went there to be seen and to look at the boys who were being seen. This forsaken hole would have needed a makeover to reach the level of Dive. No one wants to be seen here unless it's some closet jockey picking up spare change from the previously alluded to emotional wrecks before they slunk back to their condos and their undervalued spouses of all genders. And into this time tunnel, this safari park tour of ye old days of the sad fags, stumbles a ridiculously handsome young man, his golden hair wafted and tangling around his head like a spidery halo. No hustler he, despite his cover boy beauty and that
certain air of insouciant charm about him. Even the crew who took pity on the emotional wrecks took care to dress in style to appeal. This boy, though, no one would mistake him for someone wanting to allure some fortunate cocksucker into parting ways with the folding presidential memorabilia. Now, at first glance, you might be fooled into thinking he belonged there. Young, stupidly good-looking, but then with a blink, you'd be revising. Jeans, not tight enough. Sneakers, pricey, but nowhere near on mode. T-shirt was tight, but stained. Not artfully, not this garment may have marks or inconsistencies in the weave and color because it's super rare and we need to make you pay $50 for a t-shirt, so shut your hole and fork it over. Nah, this was spaghetti sauce, maybe ketchup. Something crusty and pale that was absolutely not old jizz. And clipped to the collar was some kind of a hair ornament or perhaps a humiliation device because it looked like a purple butterfly. And you might be forgiven for picturing the plastic purple butterfly as the linchpin in a diabolical scheme, exposing this annoyingly pretty butt bandit to the ridicule of the cock-raising sort. The only thing that would stop you in your mighty charitable and kind interpretation of his presence would be the waves of despair and frantic woe pouring out of him like the hooch from those well-watered bottom shelf bottles. "A phone! Please, please," he begged, his voice and accent suited to the very best in cowboy porno. "Tell me you have a phone." The three men on the customer side of the bar stared at him. The bartender looked up from his want ads and took about 10 years to ask, "What?" "I need to make a call, but there aren't any damn phones. I can pay. If you let me use your phone." His eyes pleading, voice shaking, your heart would give a twang at this poor thing. And you'd sympathize with the confused bartender because the young man was holding one of them fancy cell phones, the kind all the annoying computer people throughout Seattle had glued to their hips and asses. Not some cheap-ass thing that came free with your plan, but one of them fancy things that could probably launch the space shuttle if you hit the wrong combo keys. The bartender flicked his eyes up and down, clearly stumped by this puzzling turn of events. "It don't work?" he finally asked, pointing at the little techie toy. The pretty boy tried to talk, but it was a lengthy voyage for thoughts to tongue. "It's not mine. I mean, it's my, employer's?" One of the barflies grunted, "Oh, let him use your phone, Mel. He don't want his fucking .com listening in. I told you they all do that, right? .com this, .com that, chips and everything. Now they'll be reading our minds next." Grateful, the young man nodded his shaggy blonde head and the bartender shrugged, walking at about the pace of the Ice Age to the other end of the bar. The barflies eagerly began talking about those Microsoft fuckers and those IBM fuckers and them Apple fuckers and what about that goddamn internet fucking guy, right? And our poor frazzled spaghetti-stained cocksucker managed to punch in the number and drummed his long fingers on the worn surface of the bar. When the call connected and he heard a familiar voice, he should have been ready to deliver his demands or complaints or declarations in fury, you'd think. Instead, he burst into tears and slid onto the floor, bumping his head on the bar lip as he sank. Record screech. Now, you might be wondering how I, a lanky, elegant, cosmopolitan, Austin cocksucker, complete with a degree and a very respectable first sale in the marketplace, happened to come to this rather disturbing turn of events. Well, I'll tell you. Settle in, pour me a shot from the top shelf, please. Knock off your boots, 'cause this ain't a quick... What do you mean you want me to come to the point? I was getting there, wasn't I? I mean, it's not a simple thing we're talking about, is it? There isn't just one point. It's all tangled together like a box of Christmas lights with half of them not working, but you don't know which half, because last Christmas you did what you always say you're not going to do and shoved the whole lot in a box and make it next year's worry, and now it's next year and you got to go through. Okay, I get it. I hear you. It's just, I guess it didn't start that day, because it started when I realized that what that joke in the airplane movie was about, because I did like gladiator movies, and that meant I was a queer, and that there wasn't any way in hell I was going to survive 6th grade. And Okay. But that's why when you said start from the beginning, I kind of jumped in right at a crisis moment instead of at. All right, I understand. How about if I start with how my first sale was a complete shit show from the very first nanosecond and deteriorated from that? Yeah, that better? No narrative flair? I'll try, I guess. Yes. When I agreed to go up for sale, I knew anyone could have bought me. Some old lady wanting a walker to bank her cougar cred, sure. An unattractive gentleman of means adding me to his boy harem, okay. A genuine cackling sadist just short a supervillain, yes, sir. I swear my trainer gave me some nightmares describing just how much sheer horror I could be facing when the owners put their money down for my butt. But that's the whole fucking point, ain't it? The surrender to chance, that ultimate game of hold'em, where you're the card that's gonna make or break the hand, and there's no choice. You're gonna get played, and you're gonna find out who the winner was. That's what I wanted. What I want, I think. Like I said, it's all tangled up. Like, I really want to be a slave, a real fucking piece of meat on the block. Just give everything up, still do my best. And I tried, I really did, and you have to believe I worked. What? They said that? About me? Even after I left? Well, God fucking damn it, excuse me, but Jesus fucking Christ on wheels. Why? Why would they say such nice things? I was a complete mess. It was a shit show, like I told you. I'm beginning to see why you got 3 tissue boxes up in here. Look, I thought I was ready to accept whatever chance brung me, hoping some handsome, wealthy gentleman of the gay persuasion snapped me up like a Neiman Marcus clearance bag, but I was ready for anything. I was trained and aimed and waiting to take my first step into being whatever else someone else wanted me to be. Except, I didn't think it could really happen, though Jack said it was a great line on my resume, another skill to add to my file on the astonishing potential this young faggot possessed. Okay, what I'm saying is that I never expected to be a nanny, okay? A fucking nanny to children in a heterosexual nuclear family, all settled in their McMansion, complete with a dog, a cat, and 2 SUVs fitted with all the latest child seats and restraints that are not meant for a goddamn slave. I wanted to find Mr. Benson, but instead I was bought to be Mr. fucking Belvedere. From that old TV show. So he was kind of a butler, a valet type, but he wound up oh, never mind. It was a great line, and I guess you didn't have that channel where they play all the old shows. Let me tell you, my owners did. They had every cartoon and kiddie movie and educational channel you ever heard of. And the porno? Hoo-wee, God almighty. They had the very latest shit from Germany, Japan, fucking Finland. The most amazing, filthy goddamn shit you ever saw. Not for the kids, though, and not in their house. They had a whole other house just to keep their porno, their sex toys, their big-ass bondage equipment, and the big old sex beds that could sleep 6 if someone felt like having a nap between swapping spouses. Of course they had parties there, but not nearly enough, tell you what. 5 in the whole time I was there. And how do I know? Because it was 5 glorious times I was used, abused, wrung out, and left feeling like I kind of hoped I would be on the regular. Now, don't be getting the idea I fucking sold my ass like a bag of papaya and lime from a gas station of Whala just so as I could get fucked and beat up and tied up and such. I could get that every weekend at some bar or club or whatever have you. And I did get that sometimes as a reward. They'd sanction me some time off so I could slut around if I wanted. And of course, that was more than generous and kind. Was I saying anything else? They were fucking polite. They were kind, considerate, generous, and everything anyone could want in owners, except I don't want to be a nanny. No, I like kids just fine. They're 4 awesome kids. 4. from baby Shanine, who's 14 now, stubborn, resentful, rebellious, spiteful, just like every other rugrat in that age range, but also foxy, perceptive, and fucking amazing at basketball and soccer. She kicks my ass daily. And there's Josiah, who's 10. He's on the spectrum, fidgety as fuck, sometimes fast and loud, sometimes dark and quiet. Some people find that kind of weird or scary, but come on, it's like everyone else. You just got to understand and adapt, and we do that for every single person. I didn't have to study that in school to know just some people are different. Cam turned 6 when I left, and he's going to be some kind of tech genius like his parents. And there's the baby, and Aya, and she was just a bitty little thing, not even a year old when they bought me, so can't say much about her character, except babies are cute, which is probably the survival tactic for human species. You gotta love them, if you're normal, I guess. No accounting for psychos and such, or sad gay men who didn't want to be nannies.
I love everything about this. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Karen. Karen. Oh my God. I forget Karen's name. Thank you, Laura. Sorry. Looking at names on the thing. Oh my God. I didn't know we were getting new marketplace. Now I'm like, now I don't even know what to do with myself. I'm so dang excited. Oh my goodness. This has been such an amazing evening. Thank you all of our readers. Thank you all so much for coming to play with me on such short notice and sharing such incredible stories. This has been absolutely amazing and everything beyond, like so far beyond what I hoped this would be. Like Roving Pack has always been a little bit of a surprise for me in every possible way. And this is absolutely my favorite Roving Pack that ever event. And let me tell you, I toured it in Europe and I read it in an undergrad trans bar in Berlin. And this by far beats all of the shenanigans that were happening in the background there. This was absolutely incredible. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to everybody who logged in and wanted to come and play and hang out. This has just been so much fun. I'm going to do the obnoxious thing, which just is the new release of the re-release of it. Has a new introduction. It is available all over the interwebs as of today. Thank you again to Wolf, who absolutely dealt with my shenanigans at 2 a.m. when I was like, I'm just going to hit publish right now. Now I'm in bed and I'm going to do that because we have technology that means I can do this shit from my phone that I shouldn't be doing at 2 a.m. And it worked and fought with the internet, and it is here, and it is beautiful, and it is fixed, and you can read it as an ebook that isn't me sending you a PDF. So please do that. I'm also selling signed copies of it directly if you want to find me on the social medias for all of that stuff. But thank you again so much for being here. This has been such a total treat and an absolute highlight of my whole damn year. So with that,
you're forgetting to market your t-shirts and hoodies for the book.
Oh, thanks for the voice, the over voice. There's stuff. There's also shirts, which people have told me people wanted for the book that I still feel a little weird about, but there's links on all the social media. It's very nice looking with the cover art. So if you are a Roving Pack fan and you want a shirt, they also exist. So
and it's hunter green.
It does come in hunter green. That's true. Thank you for reminding me about that. Yes. So Karen says the shirts are weirder than tattoos. Okay, fair enough. Okay, that's fair. The shirts, I mean, the tattoos are literally like the coolest thing that's ever happened to me as a writer. And to Tony's credit, no, I did not think it would ever happen. And there are a lot of people with tattoos. And that's incredible. So I feel like I'm loving the chat. Yay merch. Those are all the things. feel like that. Are those all the things? I think that's all the info. Yes, thank you all so, so much for being here. This has been, I scripted myself for all the beginning and everything else, and then I forgot that there would be an end. So
now we get the unfiltered sass.
Yeah, the unfiltered version. Thank you all for being here. This has been an absolutely fun evening. I hope you have all enjoyed it as much as I have. I got some of my favorite writers to read me stories, and it doesn't get better than that. So, thank you all again for being here, and check out the re-release of Roving Pack. Check out all of these amazing writers. Their links and bios are in all the info for the event, and maybe we'll do this again in January when I release an Unkindness of Ravens. Spoiler. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I could pop in.
Thank
you
you,
all for
everybody.
coming.
Thank you, Sassafras, Finders Keepers.
Why does my sound keep giving out?
One of us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Woo.